Consciousness is something which is very, very enigmatic. We have already seen in our first session that consciousness is a subject matter of study. It is a subject matter of research, and it is as of now is a cutting edge topic across lots of disciplines like philosophy, psychology, quantum physics, and so many areas, especially in the areas of artificial intelligence. And we are trying to really understand that what constitute consciousness, and what are the various effects in understanding consciousness from various perspectives. So consciousness, of course, is very, very illusory. It is very perplexing. It is very, very enigmatic. And the more we try to understand it, seems that it is actually escaping from our hands. It doesn't have any kind of a shape. It is nirakar. And the more we try to understand consciousness, we ultimately get into brain and into mind. But definitely, consciousness is something which is beyond a brain and human beings and mind. And so one of the perplexing question comes is that does rock have a consciousness? Does plants have a consciousness? Does animal have consciousness? And we are going to visit those aspects also. So let's understand some of the classifications and some of the provinces of consciousness. And the more we understand what doesn't lead us to know consciousness, then you can understand that yes, this is something that leads us to the reality of consciousness. So consciousness is nirakar. It doesn't have any shape. It is elusive, but definitely it can be broadly. If you see the constituents, we have the mind, that is the manas. Then we have the buddhi, and then we have the ahamkara. Ahamkara, okay, aham and akara. That is the self. Consciousness is sometimes referred as the self. That is the purity and the absolute aspect of consciousness. That is one. And when we talk about ahamkara is something like in English we call this as an ego. And many a times it has been considered that ego functions as a firewall which doesn't allow us to access the universality of consciousness. So it is all I-ness, and the more we get into the I-ness, we are losing the touch with the universality. That is one. And second is the manas. The manas is actually the agent and coordination between the five senses of perception, like seeing, hearing, taste, touch, smell, and five organs of action, like the legs, the hands, the mouth, the organs of procreation and excretion. Now, generally in our empirical existence, we tend to get involved with these five senses of perception and five organs, and we feel and we find that these organs are everything, this physiology is everything, and the senses of perception are everything, and we get entangled, and we get into an entanglement of our organs and our senses of perception. And of course, I mean, these senses of perception and organs are the tools by which we are trying to regulate ourselves and operate in this existential world. But we have something which is beyond these five senses of perception and the five organs, that is the Gyanendriya and the Karma Indriya. But life is beyond the Karma Indriya and the Gyanendriya, but definitely they are required for normal functioning of the world. So that actually leads us to speculate that what exactly is the consciousness, and there comes the buddhi, which is the intellect, and buddhi is considered as the gyan, that is it is a discriminating intelligence, that is a vivek, that we try to understand that it is not this the world is not only comprising of the sense perceptions and only with our organs and only with the concrete reality, but there is something beyond, and this something beyond is this buddhi allows us. And generally we don't try to speculate or study consciousness because we get entangled and we get involved with our empirical and with the concrete and our objective and the materialism and the materialistic world. We all see that there is a drop of attention span, and and maybe there's a drop of attention span because of too much of involvement with the external reality. The more we introspect, the more we get into the nivritti marga, we understand that yes, that is something which is very subtle and not just the gross. And with the more we are trying to get into the subtle, the more we understand the mystics and the vagaries of existence that is beyond the concrete world. If you delve with the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, they have given so much of sutras to really understand the union between the Jivatma and the Paramatma, and that is a age-old search and a quest to understand that what comprises the universal reality. And of course, we have seen both into the Greek philosophers and of course the Western philosophers, and primarily a lot of work has done into the Eastern philosophy, where everyone is trying to really understand that what is the reality, who am I, and the search is still on. Let's understand further consciousness, and there are 7 provinces of consciousness, and let us understand very briefly one by one. And the more we understand these constituents and then the some of the provinces, the more we'll be able to really understand what actually, how we can make our way to understand the reality. So first one is considered as Vayutthana. Vayutthana is basically where we are, our mind is much more directed outside, and it is something like wandering consciousness, and we keep on wandering. That it is something like we tend to get outside, we are much more externally oriented, and the more we are externally oriented, more we are engrossed. If you see, especially into the marketing and to the advertising world, they have their own way to draw the individual towards the product, and that is the way, and that is the technique by which there is a lot of external gravitation, that the mind is being drawn outside. The second province is called the Nirodha. Nirodha means it is a restraining, because it's an again a human intellect, the buddhi, that we at times get tired with externalities, and there is a Nirodha, there is a restraining forces. We tend to go inside, and that happens automatically. Sometimes it may happen because of somebody is telling us that you go inside, you introspect, you reflect, and then there's a restraining force. So there's an externalities, there's an internality in terms of introspection. Now between this externality and the fluctuating aspects, the vritti aspect of our mental order, we get outside and we get inside. Between this, there can be a pause, and this pause can be considered as the third province, which is called as a Shanta. Shanta basically means a quietude, where you are much more quiet, where you are trying to go much more inside. So it is quite stable, and this is the starting phase where you are trying to have a very faint glimpse called self, because we are so engrossed in our thinking, we are so engrossed in the externality, even in our internality, this faint glimpse of the self is not coming. So between the externalities and internalities, there is the Vayutthana and the Nirodha, there is a Shanta, and there we get the glimpse. And the question is, how do we extend the duration of this Shanta, where you are able to get the real essence of the consciousness. Once we get into the Shanta aspect, there comes Ekagra. Ekagra is the concentration. The mind, of course, has to be trained to understand the various realities. So this particular talk actually helps us to really understand the self from various dimensions. We all are going through the externalities and the internalities and the Shanta and the Ekagra, but more we know, we become aware, we become conscious actually what we are actually going through. Then we are able to access our consciousness. So this Ekagra talks about concentration, and I think in this present world, this is a much a requirement, that how much we are concentrated to our own effort. And as we have seen that our attention span has actually dropped to a large degree, so how we can be attentive, and that is an Ekagra, the concentration. And what happens is once we are concentrated, it is being seen that we tend to develop certain kind of an elation, and once we develop an elation, what happens is there is a fissure, or there is a lesion in our existing state of our concentration, and that is called as a chidra consciousness. So chidra basically means a lesion or a fissure or a break, and that actually again fluctuates, and then when we cultivate this, that we know that yes, I think we have achieved. We know the externalities, we know the internalities, we know the Vayutana, we know the Nirodha, we know the Shanta, we know the Ekagra, and then comes the Chidra. And once the Chidra gets much more deepened, there's an analysis, there's a conjecturing that that is something which is beatitude, which is a quietude, which is self-luminous, which is the drasta, which is the seer, and that particular province is called as the nirmana, and that is a very good state. It is a better state than the shanta, and where we are trying to really get a better grasp of the higher dimension of our reality. So there are a lot of layered reality, and we are actually progressing from the gross to the very fine aspects. And one aspect we'll be seeing that the more quiet we are, the less ahamkara we have, the more we are getting in touch with the subtlest of the subtle, which is the finest of the finest we are getting into. And the last province is called the Divya state. That is the Divya consciousness, which is basically the godly consciousness, where you are trying to understand the Purusha, or as per the Sankhya Yoga, they sort of Purusha and the Prakriti. And this Purusha is the seer actually, or here we are talking something which is absolutely without any kind of a taint of negativity, without any taint of externality, and there's a level of serenity, and there we actually get in touch with the higher dimension of our consciousness.